This John Lothian News video is sponsored by
What issues are most important for options traders in the new year?
I would say that the uppermost concerns are really about the fact that the markets have become very efficient for option traders. You now have roughly about 11 exchanges. You have competing exchanges, market makers having to deal with narrower spreads in a decimalized marketplace. So I think the main issue is how do market makers continue to provide liquidity on the screen, even though we're in an age where there's a lot of efficiency done by computerization.
Are there any efforts of the OIC to adjust to those changes?
One thing that OIC does very, very well is to act as an engine for growing the market use of options. So what market makers need naturally is order flow. Everyone needs more order flow as profit margins shrink because you're making less per transaction per trade. So we are exploring all kinds of new users that previously didn't really have an interest in the product, but now are coming around to looking at options in a new light. Some of that is due to the tremendous creativity that's happening in the option space, new products, weeklies. We're going to have a mini contract, which is the underlying will no longer be 100 shares of an ETF or an index or a stock, but rather 10. So it makes it more appealing for the retail user to hedge his 10 shares of Apple or Google or whatever high-priced security he might not have 100 shares of. This I think, will be a tremendous benefit to both the retail investor as well as to the market maker himself. On the other side of the equation, getting away from retail, institutional use of options will be the biggest target that we have at OIC. The institutional use of options, we've always known that hedge funds have used options, but the groups that we really think that should be using them and haven't are pension funds. And we have had some real good success in breaking through and getting to pension funds and educating them on how they might use this product to help not only mitigate risk, but provide income to their portfolio.
What is new this year on the OIC's seminar schedule?
We're always trying to advance the material. So we want to maintain our gold standard, and the latest effort in that is we have a brand new Greek seminar, which I'll be giving the pilot version of that sometime in March. Last year we did an advanced strategy seminar that covered a lot of four-legged spreads as well as three-legged spreads, and that too was something that we hadn't done in the past. So we're advancing material. On the other side of the coin, we've had a call to make even the most basic presentations simpler. So we're going to be using illustrations, I think, for the first time in our educational materials to explain some of the concepts. Additionally, we're hitting cities that we've never hit before, where we think there's interest in learning about the product. Kansas City comes to mind, Bellevue, Washington, Little Rock, Arkansas, which we don't have in the calendar right now, but we will have at some point later this year. And maybe even Cincinnati, where you have concentrated wealth from Procter & Gamble stock.
Where do you see the opportunity for options education in Europe?
The European market is very interesting to us. It's a developing market, if you will. London does not have an options exchange per se, but we're starting to see a big transition in the European Union where you're moving from defined benefits, as they are in the UK, to defined contributions. And with that, we think there's an opportunity for these defined contribution plans to employ options for retirement portfolios. So we see this as a big opportunity for education.
What kind of education programs would you implement?
It runs the gamut. because in many ways, options are very foreign to a lot of European countries. They don't use them. They're not familiar with them. It's either a futures-based marketplace or a warrant-based marketplace. So we have to start with the ABCs of options. In other areas that are developed, say Milan, Amsterdam, it's more about the products that we have here in the U.S. and how they can use those products.
What percentage of Europeans trade options in the U.S.?
Roughly about 10%, and that number came from an extensive TAB report that was done about a year and a half ago, where they did extensive interviews with hedge funds, pension fund managers alike throughout Europe. And, the number is a ballpark figure, but what it does tell you is there's a lot of room for growth, which is exciting.
Last year, options volume growth slowed. Do you think this will continue in 2013?
While it was down from calendar year 2011, 2011 was an extraordinary year where we had tremendous volatility coming on the backs of the debt downgrade. And so we had just 3 or 4 months where the volumes were explosive. This past year, volatility was fairly range-bound. And yet we still had our second best year, over 4 billion contracts traded. So if I look at those figures in comparison to 2011, they don't look so good. But when I look in comparison in the overall sense of how our market is growing, I'm very encouraged that our volumes will continue to improve. In fact, I think within the next 5 years, we'll be hitting numbers that far exceed our best calendar year in 2011.